My name is Jake Morrison, and I thought I knew what family meant until the day my grandfather's lawyer called. I was 43, hands permanently stained with motor oil from my auto shop, living paycheck to paycheck in the same small town where I'd grown up. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was under the hood of Mrs. Henderson's ancient Buick. "Mr. Morrison, this is regarding your grandparents' estate." My heart stopped. Grandpa had passed 3 months ago, following Grandma by just 6 weeks. I'd been the one holding their hands in those final moments, the one who'd spent the last 5 years driving the 30 miles to their farm every single day after work. While my siblings, Sarah in California and Mike in Chicago, sent occasional cards and made yearly visits, I'd been there through every doctor's appointment, every sleepless night, every small victory and devastating setback. "There's been a development," the lawyer continued. "Could you come in today?" I wiped my greasy hands on my coveralls, told my assistant to handle the shop, and drove to town with my stomach churning. The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and coffee. Mr. Peterson, a man who'd known our family for decades, looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Jake, your grandparents left specific instructions, very specific instructions." Daddy, he slid a sealed envelope across his mahogany desk. My name was written on it in Grandpa's shaky handwriting, the same hand that had taught me to tie fishing knots and change oil filters. "They wanted you to read this first, alone." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in Grandpa's careful script, each word deliberate and measured. I could almost hear his voice as I read, "My dear Jake, if you're reading this, then Martha and I have gone to join the Lord, and you've been the faithful grandson we always knew you were. We want you to know that every sacrifice you made, every evening you spent with us instead of building your own life, every time you put our needs before your own, we saw it all, and our hearts were full." I had to stop reading. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I remembered all those evenings when friends invited me out, all the dates I'd cancelled, all the opportunities I'd passed up because Grandma needed her medications organized or Grandpa needed help fixing the fence. We know Sarah and Mike have their own lives, their own families, their own priorities. We don't blame them for that. But you, Jake, you chose us. You chose love over convenience, duty over comfort. That's why we've made arrangements that reflect not just our love, but our gratitude. The letter went on to explain that they'd been planning this for years, watching how each of their grandchildren responded to their aging and increasing needs. They'd seen Sarah's brief obligatory phone calls and Mike's promises to visit that rarely materialized. But they'd also seen me, week after week, year after year, showing up without being asked. "What you'll discover today will change your life, son. But remember, it's not just what we're giving you, it's what you earned through love." Mr. Peterson was watching me carefully when I looked up. "Are you ready to hear the rest?" "Your grandparents," Mr. Peterson began, "were far wealthier than anyone knew, including you." I stared at him, confused. Grandpa had been a farmer, Grandma a school teacher. They lived modestly, drove old trucks, mended clothes instead of buying new ones. I'd assumed their small farm was their only asset. "Jake, your grandfather inherited land from his father and his father before him. Over the decades, he made some very wise investments. He also discovered oil on the back 40 of his property 15 years ago." My mouth fell open. Oil? On Grandpa's land? He kept it quiet, didn't want to change how people treated him or your grandmother. The royalty checks went straight into investments, conservative ones, but over 15 years. He slid another document across the desk. "The estate is worth approximately $4.2 million. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $4 million. The man who taught me that a dollar earned was a dollar respected, who darned his own socks and grew his own vegetables, had been sitting on a fortune. But here's where it gets interesting. Mr. Peterson continued, your grandparents divided the inheritance very specifically. Sarah and Mike each receive $50,000, enough to be meaningful but not life-changing. You, Jake, inherit everything else. The farm, the oil rights, the investments, the house, all of it. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. $4 million. The farm that held every good memory of my childhood. The house where I'd learned to cook Sunday dinner and play checkers by the fireplace. They left detailed instructions about why, he added, pulling out another document. They documented every visit, every phone call, every act of service over the past 5 years. They wanted there to be no question about their decision. I drove back to the farm in a daze, my grandfather's keys heavy in my pocket. The house felt different now, not just empty, but transformed. Every room held new meaning. The kitchen where I'd helped Grandma with her medications was now mine. The workshop where Grandpa had taught me to use his tools was mine. The land where we'd walked together on summer evenings, talking about life and dreams and disappointments, was mine. I called my boss and told him I wouldn't be back for a few days. I needed time to process this, to figure out what it meant for my life. I walked through the house, touching familiar objects that now belonged to me. Grandma's china cabinet, Grandpa's collection of farming magazines, the quilt she'd made for their 50th anniversary. That evening I was sitting on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the fields golden, when my phone rang. Sarah. Jake, I just heard from the lawyer. Can you believe it? Grandma and Grandpa had money all this time. Her voice was bright, excited. He said something about oil rights. This is incredible. We need to talk about how to handle everything. My stomach tightened. What do you mean, we? Well, the three of us, obviously. We'll need to decide whether to sell the farm or keep it, how to divide the oil royalties, what to do with all that money. I'm thinking we should get a financial advisor, maybe... Sarah, I interrupted. Did the lawyer explain the terms of the will? There was a pause. He said something about different amounts, but I figured that was just some legal formality. We're family, Jake. We'll split everything equally, like we always planned. I closed my eyes. She had no idea. None of them did. I think you should call Mr. Peterson back, I said quietly. Ask him to explain the will again, carefully. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Mike this time, his voice tight with anger. What the hell did you do, Jake? I was making coffee in Grandpa's kitchen using his favorite mug, now my favorite mug. Good morning to you too, Mike. Don't give me that. The lawyer just explained the will. $50,000? $50,000 while you get millions? What did you do to them? Did you manipulate them? Did you isolate them from us? The accusation hit like a physical blow. Manipulate them. Mike, when's the last time you visited? When's the last time you called just to check on them, not because it was a holiday or someone's birthday? That's not the point. They were our grandparents too. We have jobs, families, responsibilities. We couldn't just drop everything like you did. I didn't drop everything. I made choices. Every single day for 5 years, I made choices. Bullshit. You saw an opportunity and you took it. You probably filled their heads with lies about us, made them think we didn't care. I set down my coffee cup before I threw it. They didn't need me to tell them anything, Mike. They had eyes. They had phones. They knew who showed up and who didn't. This isn't over, he said. Sarah's already talking to a lawyer. We're not going to let you steal our inheritance. The line went dead. I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the ghosts of Sunday dinners and birthday celebrations, and felt the weight of what was coming. My siblings weren't just disappointed. They were declaring war. Over the next week, the attacks came from every direction. Sarah hired a lawyer in California who specialized in contesting wills. Mike started calling distant relatives, painting me as a manipulative opportunist who'd taken advantage of 2 elderly people. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly reached out, asking pointed questions about Grandma and Grandpa's state of mind in their final years. The worst part was the doubt they planted in my own mind. Had I been selfish? Had my constant presence somehow influenced my grandparents unfairly? I found myself replaying every conversation, every decision, wondering if my siblings were right. Then I found Grandma's journals. I was cleaning out her bedroom, boxing up clothes for donation, when I discovered them in her nightstand drawer. 5 years' worth of daily entries, written in her careful teacher's handwriting. I sat on her bed and read, and with each page, my guilt transformed into something else entirely. Jake came by after work today. He looked so tired, but he still helped Harold fix the back gate. I worry we're asking too much of him, but he never complains. He just shows up day after day like love made visible. Sarah called today. 5 minutes about her new job, 2 minutes asking about our health, then she had to go. I understand she's busy, but sometimes I wonder if we're just items on her to-do list. Mike promised to visit for Harold's birthday. Called this morning to cancel, something about a work conference. Jake drove over with a cake he'd bought at the grocery store. Harold pretended not to be disappointed, but I saw his face. Page after page, year after year, the pattern was clear. I wasn't the manipulator. I was simply the one who'd stayed. Sarah's lawyer was good. I'll give him that. He filed a formal contest of the will, claiming undue influence and questioning my grandparents' mental capacity. Suddenly, I needed my own attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Martinez, who specialized in estate law. "They're fishing," she told me during our first meeting. "But we need to be prepared. They'll try to prove your grandparents were coerced or mentally incompetent when they made these decisions." The next few months were a nightmare of depositions, medical records, and character witnesses. Sarah and Mike painted a picture of me as a scheming opportunist who'd isolated our grandparents from their family. They brought in experts who questioned whether elderly people could make rational decisions about large sums of money. But we had evidence they couldn't dispute. Medical records showing my grandparents were mentally sharp until the end. Bank records showing the will had been updated multiple times over several years, always with the same basic structure. And most damaging to their case, phone records showing the pattern of contact between my grandparents and their 3 grandchildren. The numbers were stark. Over the final 2 years of their lives, I'd called or visited 847 times. Sarah had called 23 times. Mike had called 31 times and visited twice. "This isn't about money," Sarah insisted during her deposition. "This is about fairness, about family." But when Rebecca asked her to name the medications our grandmother was taking, or describe our grandfather's daily routine, or recall a single specific conversation from their final year, Sarah couldn't answer. Neither could Mike. I could have recited Grandma's pill schedule from memory. I knew Grandpa's favorite breakfast, his preferred television shows, the stories he told when his arthritis was acting up. I knew because I'd been there. Just when the legal battle seemed hopeless, my siblings had more money for lawyers, more time to fight, more relatives rallying to their cause. An unexpected ally emerged. Dr. Patricia Henley had been my grandparents' physician for over 20 years. She was retiring and had been following the will contest in the local newspaper. One day, she called my lawyer directly. "I have something that might interest you," she told Rebecca. Dr. Henley had kept detailed notes about my grandparents' care, including their family dynamics. More importantly, she'd recorded several conversations where my grandparents had specifically discussed their inheritance plans. They were very clear about their reasoning, Dr. Henley explained during her deposition. Harold and Martha Morrison were 2 of the sharpest people I knew, right up until the end. They weren't being manipulated. They were making deliberate choices based on years of observation. She produced notes from a visit 18 months before Grandpa's death, where he'd explicitly discussed his concerns about Sarah and Mike's lack of involvement. "Doc," he told me, "Jake's been like a son to us. The other two, they love us, but they love us from a distance. When Martha and I are gone, Jake's the one who'll remember how we liked our coffee and what songs made us smile. That's worth more than blood." Dr. Henley's testimony was devastating to my siblings' case. Here was an objective third party, a respected physician, confirming that my grandparents had been mentally competent and emotionally clear about their decisions. But the most powerful moment came when she read from her notes about Grandma's final weeks. "I worry about Jake," Martha told me. "He's given up so much for us. I see him watching other people his age getting married, buying houses, building their own lives, and I know he's sacrificing his future for our present. That's not manipulation. That's love." The courtroom was packed the day of final arguments. Half the town had shown up, including many people who'd known my grandparents for decades. Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store, Tom Bradley, who'd farmed the land next to ours, the pastor from their church. People who'd watched our family dynamics play out over the years. Sarah's lawyer made his final pitch about fairness and equal treatment, about the dangers of allowing elderly people to make emotional decisions about large sums of money. He painted me as a calculating manipulator who'd preyed on two lonely old people. Then Rebecca stood up. "Your Honor, this case isn't about money. It's about love. It's about showing up. It's about the difference between caring for someone and caring about someone." She walked the jury through the evidence, not just the phone records and visit logs, but the human story they told. She read from Grandma's journals, from Dr. Henley's notes, from letters my grandparents had written to friends describing their gratitude for my care. "Jake Morrison didn't steal this inheritance," she said. "He earned it. Every day for 5 years, he earned it. He earned it by driving 30 miles after a full day of work to help his grandfather with chores. He earned it by sitting in hospital waiting rooms during his grandmother's surgeries. He earned it by being present for the small moments that make up a life, the daily medications, the grocery runs, the conversations about nothing that meant everything." She turned to face my siblings. "Sarah and Mike Morrison aren't bad people. They're busy people. They're people with their own lives and their own priorities. But their grandparents had priorities too, and those priorities were clear. They valued presence over promises, actions over intentions, love demonstrated over love declared." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. "We find in favor of the defendant. The will stands as written." The words hit the courtroom like a thunderclap. I felt my knees go weak with relief, but also with something else, vindication. Not just legal vindication, but emotional vindication. A jury of 12 strangers had looked at the evidence and confirmed what I'd known in my heart. I hadn't stolen anything. I'd earned every dollar through 5 years of faithful service. Sarah burst into tears. Mike stormed out of the courtroom without looking at me. Several relatives who'd sided with them followed him out, their faces tight with disapproval. The family fracture was complete now, probably permanent. But others stayed. Mrs. Henderson hugged me, tears in her eyes. "Your grandparents would be so proud," she whispered. Tom Bradley shook my hand firmly. "You did right by them, Jake. Don't let anyone tell you different." Outside the courthouse, Rebecca pulled me aside. "They'll probably appeal," she warned. "This might not be over." But I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Win or lose any future appeals, the truth was now on the record. 12 impartial people had heard all the evidence and concluded that my grandparents had made their decision with clear minds and full hearts. That evening, I drove back to the farm, my farm now legally and officially. I sat on the front porch where Grandpa and I had spent so many evenings watching the sunset paint the fields the same golden color it had painted them for generations. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy with your blood money." Sarah, I deleted the message without responding. She was wrong about one thing. I hadn't destroyed the family. I'd simply revealed what it really was. 6 months after the verdict, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I sold my auto shop and moved permanently to the farm, not just to live in my grandparents' house, but to honor their legacy by making the land productive again. The oil royalties provided steady income, but I wanted to do more than just collect checks. I started small, a vegetable garden that grew into a market garden, selling produce at the local farmers market. I fixed up the old barn and bought a few head of cattle. I learned to work the land the way Grandpa had taught me, with respect and patience. The work was hard, harder than fixing cars, but it felt right. Every morning, I walked the same paths my grandfather had walked, checking fences and water levels and the health of growing things. I could feel his presence in the rhythm of the work, hear his voice in the wind through the wheat. I wasn't alone either. Tom Bradley became a mentor, teaching me the finer points of farming that Grandpa hadn't lived long enough to share. Mrs. Henderson started bringing me Sunday dinner once a week, claiming I was too skinny and needed looking after. Dr. Henley, now retired, became a regular visitor, sharing stories about my grandparents that I'd never heard. Slowly, I built a new kind of family, not based on blood, but on choice. People who showed up, people who cared through actions, not just words. The legal appeals dragged on for another year, but they went nowhere. The original verdict stood. Sarah and Mike eventually stopped fighting, though they never stopped resenting. We haven't spoken since the trial ended. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about that, about the family relationships that died, along with my grandparents. But then I remember something Grandpa told me during one of our last conversations. Family isn't just about who you're born to, Jake. It's about who you choose to love and who chooses to love you back. 2 years after moving to the farm, I discovered something that changed everything again. I was cleaning out the attic, finally getting around to sorting through decades of accumulated memories, when I found a box labeled "For Jake" in Grandma's handwriting. Inside were letters, hundreds of them. Letters my grandparents had written but never sent, documenting their thoughts and feelings throughout my years of caring for them. Letters of gratitude, of worry about my sacrifices, of hope for my future. But also letters to Sarah and Mike, expressing their love but also their disappointment. At the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope with my name on it, dated just a week before Grandpa's death. Inside was a letter that made me cry harder than I had since their funeral. "Jake, if you're reading this, then you've survived the storm we knew would come. Sarah and Mike will be angry, and they'll try to make you feel guilty for accepting what we freely chose to give. Don't let them. You earned every penny through love, and love is the only currency that matters in the end. But we have one more gift for you, son." In the safety deposit box at First National, you'll find the deed to the old Miller property, the 200 acres that borders our south field. We bought it quietly last year, thinking you might want to expand someday. It's yours now, free and clear. More importantly, you'll find something else in that box, something that proves you were never alone in this decision. We weren't the only ones watching, Jake. We weren't the only ones who saw your heart. The next morning, I drove to the bank with shaking hands. The safety deposit box contained the deed, as promised, 200 acres of prime farmland that doubled the size of my property. But it also contained something I never expected, letters from other people, Mrs. Henderson had written to my grandparents, praising my character and dedication. Dr. Henley had sent a formal letter recommending me as their primary caregiver and eventual heir. Tom Bradley had written about my work ethic and integrity. Even the pastor from their church had weighed in, describing my faithful service to my grandparents as a living example of Christian love. Dozens of people had witnessed my care and had taken the time to document it, creating an unshakable foundation for my grandparents' decision. Today, 5 years after that first phone call from the lawyer, I'm sitting on the same front porch where this story began. But everything has changed. The farm is thriving. 300 acres of productive land that feeds dozens of families through the farmers market and local restaurants. The oil wells continue producing, providing financial security I never dreamed possible. But the real inheritance wasn't the money or the land. It was the lesson my grandparents taught me about what love looks like when it's lived out day after day, year after year. It's showing up, it's staying present, it's choosing someone else's needs over your own convenience, not once or twice, but consistently, faithfully, without keeping score. I think about Sarah and Mike sometimes, wonder if they've learned anything from this experience. I hope they have. I hope they understand now that inheritance isn't about what you're owed. It's about what you've earned through love. Last month, I hired my first full-time employee, a young man named David whose grandfather had recently moved in with his family. I see the same tired eyes in him that I once saw in the mirror, the same weight of responsibility and love. I pay him well and give him flexible hours because I know what it's like to balance caring for family with building a future. You don't have to do this alone, I told him on his first day. Family is about showing up for each other. The sun is setting now, painting the fields the same golden color that has marked the end of day on this land for generations. Tomorrow I'll wake up and tend to the cattle, check the crops, maintain the fences that mark the boundaries of the life I've built through love and loss, and the grace of 2 people who saw my heart clearly. My phone buzzes. A text from Mrs. Henderson asking if I need anything from town. I smile and type back, just grateful for what I have. And I am. Grateful for the inheritance I earned, the family I chose, and the love that continues to grow on this land, where I learned that the best gifts aren't given, they're lived.